ZAKA, which has been around since 1989 with over 2,800 volunteers in over 15 countries, has really been blessed to have a new chairman take over the international units, really bringing his leadership, his experience, his expertise, his humanitarianism, his philanthropic abilities. And it's just with great honor that we welcome Mr. Meir Gervitz as the...
My initial engagement with such a disaster was when I was 18 years old. I was a yeshiva bucher in Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. There was the 1973 war. It was very hard to walk around the streets of Jerusalem without participating in the fighting. I asked myself, how can I help the nation in such a desired time? I decided to volunteer to Chevra Kadisha. That's the least I can do. And I was sent first to the north of Israel. I must confess, they gave me a truck with 20 Chevra Kadisha volunteers at the back. The first missile that crossed my way caused me to stop, to do a triangle, to do a turn back. They were all shouting because we almost fell off the cliff in the Golan Heights. I came back and I said, listen, the north is too dangerous for me. I would like to go somewhere where it's a bit quieter. The missile still, I can still hear the sound of it. You know, I was only 18 years old. I was then sent to the south of Israel, Egypt. I know I don't look it, but I managed to cross the Suez Canal with all the other soldiers. It was already after the major fights. And we had to go in to the Israeli tanks and actually literally scrape the bodies of the Israeli soldiers out. Those days, the Egyptians used to use a rocket called RPG. It's a Russian rocket. When it penetrates into a tank, it leaves nothing inside. All I can remember that we went into the tanks and we saw, like we see these pictures on the wall, we saw humans, they look like wallpapers. We had to go in with a mask. Just remember, I was 18 years old. There were like 5 volunteers outside with large sacks, you know what I mean? Just to go inside. I don't know what drove me to do that. And that was my initial involvement with the disasters, so to say. And this is maybe the incident that led me to take on myself this present position, which is not an easy one. I thought I was promised to take an hour on my day. It does take actually 90% of my day. But I'm happy that I was zoiche to maybe help a little bit to those people who need there in such special times.
Thank you to this person right here who did a major mitzvah this past week. I called him in desperation. We had to have an immediate burial for someone, and you know all the bureaucratic tape that you have to go through sometimes. Immediately, he cut through it. The family was relieved, so on behalf of the family, happens to be Spencer Ross, who's the voice of the Knicks for years. His son tragically was taken, and that Ross family is indebted to you for all you did.
We live in an era where, unfortunately, the tragedies, both man-made and natural disasters, visit us too often. We saw it again this past weekend. And the work of ZAKA, the dignity that it brings, the kavod hames to those who are dead or to those who are in need, is really the highest mitzvah as we know. There's no higher calling than doing for those who cannot pay you back and for those who won't pay you back, but responding to the call. So we are grateful and we welcome and thank Meir Gervitz for helping initiate ZAKA International here in New York.
Recognition of ZAKA as a UN and humanitarian NGO. ZAKA has been working around the world from Mumbai to Mombasa to Mexico. And with this office here in New York, we hope ZAKA continues its very important work, and we hope to be there with you.
After being within at 100 yards of a bus bombing and seeing the rapid response back when I was a teenager, and I've always admired their work and their courage and their efforts, and I'm glad to be a part of this organization and help it grow and continue to do its wonderful chesed and good work.
ZAKA is a remarkable institution, and I learned a good deal more about it today than I had known before, although I'd known something of its work. It embodies, in many ways, I think, the Jewish community's a sense of service to the rest of humanity and to the world, and does so in a beautiful and self-sacrificing and noble way. I thought I might take just 30 seconds to a minute and tell this audience how I met Judaism. I think it's kind of an interesting story about the culture I come from, which is Scotch-Irish Presbyterians in the Southwest. And I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, was shooting baskets out in the back of our house, my new basketball backboard my father had put up. And a family began to move into the home that was right behind ours, a house that had been vacant for a few weeks. And I saw them moving in, and I ran into the kitchen and said to my mother, I said, "Mom, there's finally a family moving into the Smith house." I said, they've got a boy, he's a little older than me, and he's got on a weird baseball cap and doesn't have a bill. And my Scotch-Irish Presbyterian mother said, "Oh, that probably means they're Jewish." And I said, "What's Jewish?" And she said, "Well, you're studying Sunday school right now. You did Gideon and the Lamps last week." I said, "Wow, you mean they're Israelites?" And she said, "Well, sort of." And I said, well, what are they like?" And she said, "Oh, they're just like us, except they believe that Jesus was just a good man and not the Son of God. Go welcome them to the neighborhood." I said, "Okay." So I went to the back door. They were moving in, and the boy, who was a few years older than I was, I said, "I want to welcome you to the neighborhood." He said, "Great." I said, "Can I see your Christmas tree?" And he kind of smiled, and he said, "We've got something else. Would you like to look at it?" And I said, "Yeah." So went in and learned a bit about Hanukkah, was given some ice cream. And if I may say so, that is probably not an extraordinary experience for those of us from that side of Christian culture. Our sense of partnership and collegiality, for most of us, I won't claim it for everybody, with the Jewish community here, and I would say with Israel, is extraordinary, an extraordinary bond, and one that many of us cherish and treasure a great deal. And in that spirit, I want to thank you for including me in this event today. Thank you.
The unfortunate situation of recovering the body of a person and their remains is something very, very holy and sacred in our Jewish belief, as you know. Not only the soul is important, but also the body of the person is very important.
1, 2, 3, cut!